What is going on YouTube? Nexus TV back here on another video today. The most recent What If episode dropped late last night or earlier this morning, and I just watched it like an hour ago. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I do and explain the episode with Lance included. So we're going to go the route of Lance building his own X-7 wings due to the fact that although Sam is undead, he still has his wings. So Lance builds his own X-7 wings. And this quote or this piece of dialogue can be the first scene where we see Lance and he kind of like explains what he did. He's like, ever since I saw Sam wearing these things, I've wanted something like them. And of course, in this episode, Lance is still, it's kind of like the Falcon spider pretty much. So like he has his webs, he has his web shooters, only they're pretty much attached to the suit that you saw me mention in the episode where I mentioned what Lance's what if could possibly be. And we see Lance pretty much use the web shooters a lot in the episode, and he doesn't really use them to like transport himself. He more really just uses them for like ranged weapons, kind of like how you see Falcon use the Uzis multiple times. We pretty much get it's pretty much Lance using the web shooters in the same way. So the scene's gonna pop up on screen where this happened or where he says this, but Lance in this scene, he says while they're trying to figure out what their next move is, where the Resistance next move is, Lance pretty much says, "To be honest, I thought I'd spend my 16th birthday with my family and friends living it up, but I guess I'm just gonna be fighting zombies." Mainly because that is what he's probably gonna be doing. And I'm thinking this episode takes place while Infinity War is supposed to be taking place, but we obviously don't end up getting the same Infinity War, and it's probably around May of 2018, like how Infinity War was originally. And of course, Lance isn't quite 16 yet; he's still 15 at that point, I believe. No, I believe he might be 16 at this point. I don't remember like the ages, because Lance and Peter are the same age, but I don't remember how the ages line up. I forgot temporarily. Peter's right. I don't think this is a good idea. Lance says this in the scene where they get to that train station and Okoye proposes the idea of splitting up, and I think Peter says something along the lines of, "Have you guys never or does Wakanda not have horror movies?" And Lance basically says, "I agree with Peter. This isn't a good idea." Because I didn't want Lance and Peter's friendship to be kind of obsolete in this episode. I wanted to show that even in this timeline, they're still at least acquaintances. And the thing is that I wanted to do that because Lance and Bucky kind of share the friendship that Peter and Lance have in the main timeline. So didn't want to really kind of cast out the relationship that Lance and Peter have, or friendship. Hey, watch it. Do you know how hard it was to build these things? Sam kicks Lance out of the air and makes Lance fall on his back where his wings are. So in the same scene at the train station, Bucky and Okoye attempt to fight the Falcon, aka Sam, or the undead Falcon. And of course, even though Sam is dead at this point, he still has his wings and he still has the expertise that he had when he was still alive with the wings. So of course he's better with Lance when it comes to them because he was using them longer. And Lance attempts to fight Sam for like a good 5 seconds, and then Lance nearly hits him, but Sam just violates Lance and kicks him onto his back, and Lance goes flying. Lance on the ground. And in that same scene, Sam pretty much tries to kill Bucky, but Okoye saves him, and Bucky gives us the hilarious line, "I should be sad, but I'm not." Like, because they're not friends yet at this point. Ah! So I know I want this to be when I'm guessing Bucky and Steve are fighting, and kind of Lance is with him, and Lance isn't really doing much in the fight. He's kind of just trying not to get bitten by undead Steve, and he nearly gets bitten at one point. That's where he screams. He's like, "Ah!" Because he's like, "No, don't do that." looks like the first Avenger will be avenged. Lance says after Bucky takes Steve down. So Bucky pretty much lays Steve out in this fight. Steve throws the shield at him. Bucky kind of catches it Winter Soldier style, and then 360s, throws it back at Steve. Pretty much slices Steve in half, and he gives us that tear-jerking line where he's like, "Sorry, pal. I guess this is the end of the line." Then he grabs the shield, puts it on his back. And it was pretty cool to see Bucky actually use the shield for a minute in this episode. And he didn't really use it to fight though. He more just used it as defense, kind of like how Cap used it. And I want to put in the fact that Lance kind of grabs Bucky's shoulder when he says that, kind of like puts his hand on it, kind of like how he did with Peter when Tony died in Endgame. And moving on to the next line. Are we gonna take her down, or? And that was in the scene where the Resistance finds out that Vision, when they get to Vision's hideout, he was actually keeping Wanda alive, and Wanda was feeding off of T'Challa's pretty much health, I'm guessing. And we'll get to that line in a minute, but that's pretty much like what he says as she's pretty much assaulting them. Run, just run. So this is a scene where they're about to escape to the quad jet, like the Resistance is about to, and Bucky decides to buy some time for the Resistance. So he turns around, he starts pretty much distracting Wanda, and he turns around, he's like, run. So Lance kind of like jogs a little bit, or he doesn't really start running as soon as the others do, because he's kind of like trying to wait for Bucky. He's like, we gotta wait for him though. Like, what if he comes with us? Because, like I said in this episode, Lance and Bucky have the same type of relationship that Lance and Peter do in the main timeline. So of course Lance doesn't want to leave his close friends, so he just doesn't. But then halfway to the quad jet, Lance looks up and just sees Bucky flying through the air. So he's like, Bucky! So Lance activates the wings, starts flying. He just flies up, starts flying toward, trying to like grab Bucky out of the sky, I'm guessing. We don't know what happens to those two. They just kind of disappear. And then this last line is kind of out of order with the rest. But when Lance and Bucky are patrolling for transportation to get out of Vision's hideout, they find T'Challa, of course, which I mentioned earlier at the "Are we gonna take her down?" or line, and that's where we find out that T'Challa's still alive. And of course, he gives us that classic, that Falcon and Winter Soldier, "Oh God, no" line that I told you that Lance is pretty much the CEO of. So that marks the end of this video. You guys might get a double upload today because of the fact that the Shang-Chi update just came out on Marvel Future Fight. But thank you for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. And next TV out. Have a good day or night wherever you are.